So today we're going to talk about mindset success. It is. I was telling Luetta maybe before this class. This is a good day to do mindset. Talk about mindset and scarcity and abundance because I had a really crappy mindset this morning, and so I think the just getting real about the fact that like all of us, right? You can just have a crappy day. You can get yourself into a rut and mindset success is really about it's not about avoiding having a bad mindset. You really sometimes you can't avoid it, and we're going to talk about that. That's many times there are things that happen in our lives, and some of them are just unavoidable. And what you can do, and we'll go through a lot of this, like what are the tricks and ways that you can get yourself back on track? What are the ways that you can do things like this? Like I probably would, 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, I would have canceled this meeting. We just wouldn't do this recording because I'm in a crabby mood and I would just have to deal with my little crabby things. And then I just wouldn't do the activities I'm supposed to do because they're in my calendar. So you can get better through practice.
And I think one of the most important things is recognizing. I think we all just get so involved in everything that's going on in life. We don't always understand that we're even in a scarcity mindset. So
Yeah.
recognizing what you are and listening to what other people are telling you. Oftentimes it'll be your spouse or significant other that is like, man, something wrong, or your kids.
Yeah. And scarcity, I think you can replace the word with just negative, right?
Yeah.
Like negative can just be a lot of things. It doesn't necessarily, scarcity and abundance obviously go together, but it can just be like negative and positive, or even just negative and neutral, right? Most of the time, you don't even have to get positive. You don't even have to be airy fairy or, think everything is about bunnies and butterflies. You could just not be crabby, right? You just move yourself from like being in the dumps to just being neutral.
I like Pollyanna.
Oh, I know. I know that part was for you. Yeah, you are really, really good. You're like better than almost anyone I know at spinning out of a bad mindset. Like you just keep yourself in a really good mindset. And I think that it is something, but I think you do work at it too.
I do.
You do work at it. And it is one of those things I think where like when you're just aware of where this is at, like that is like step one, right? Well, we can probably go to the next slide. Like step one, you have to recognize, right? You have to recognize that I'm in a scarcity or a negative mindset. So we all fall into this scarcity mindset by default, right? So it's something that happens, and things. And again, it doesn't mean that you're a negative person or anything else. You just can allow things in your life to just the saying that I said at my networking group this morning, which I've used myself personally and many times have helped other agents with this, like the difference between a rut and the grave is the depth of the hole. Right. And so you can just get yourself into a rut, and that rut can just get deeper and deeper and deeper, mostly because we just don't recognize that we're in that pattern. We don't recognize that we're focusing on things that are negative. We're focusing on things that lack, or things that just are not in our best interest. And so obviously awareness is number one. Number two, so again, moving from scarcity to abundance, or moving from negative to positive, or even negative to neutral, just stop and breathe. One of my friends this morning, he was just saying he owns a big woodworking cabinet company, and he just the other day, it was 50 degrees, which apparently is great in Minnesota, by the way. In March, when we're recording this, it is 50 is great. And he stood outside. He was watching some birds in the sun, and just standing in the sun. He said it was like just stopping to breathe, like literally stopping to just enjoy standing outside for 10 minutes and just noticing like just the warmth on your face. And so pausing to breathe, like I think you shouldn't have to tell yourself that. But that is a great way You and I have talked about just like, going for a walk at, Lake Elmo Park Reserve, stopping in the middle of your day just to do something to take that activity that actually just causes you to really remember like how fragile life is, how important things are, how valuable you are. And that this little dumb thing, right, just gets really hung up on like all kinds of things that mostly you don't control. And the seven things you do control, you skipped in the morning because you were pissy. And I
Right.
think, oh, okay, I didn't do the activities because I got in my little rut. I found myself being a little bit salty. And then about noon, I just, went looking for cupcakes. And then by two, I was still kind of crabby and I didn't change my behavior. So pausing to breathe, right? Go for a walk, do something. The third step, right? Reframe to growth. And what can I do to learn from this experience? What can I do to learn from, again, a tough mindset? Success in, being an entrepreneur is, I mean, it's a mental game. It is 90% mental, 10% activities. And I think the 90% mental game can be so many of these things that we worry about in running a business or having a business. Um, so many of them are really just make believe, right? They're things that haven't happened, right? We worry about like the results of an appointment we were on, and like, but we don't know what the results are. But we're worried about things that aren't in our control. We did the best we could, or we didn't, and we're waiting to find out if they choose us or didn't, right? So reframing your mindset or lack thereof to be a growth opportunity to say, you know what, like I am going to grow from this. And then taking the number one step. So it almost, if you wrote these backwards, the number one step is to take small actions towards a goal. Again, for me today, the small action literally was to log in. I knew that you would be in here. I knew that if I canceled, you'd be really, really crabby. And so just the activity. So when you have a crabby mindset and you have, a lot of stuff going on, challenges, my own personal struggles, right? I started my week off with a funeral in our family. So like, there's just those things, right? That we can call excuses, life events, whatever you want to say. And at the end of the day, you do control those small little actions.
Yeah.
One small action that I used to do a lot. And so just to give one more example, which I mentioned this morning, and I really need to get back to it. You have to, like, if you want to work out, which I do, I say I do, but I don't put my shoes next to my bed, which I know to be the small, tiny little action. That's all I have to do. Because if I do trip over them, or if I have to stand on them, or if they just put them right at the edge of my bed, I'll put them on. Because I would feel guilty to pick them up and move them somewhere else. And if I put them on, which will only take me 30 seconds, then I'll likely just work out. I probably won't just go to the coffee pot and start my day. And so it's those little things. So what can you do? What can you do this week to just say, okay, I'm going to take one little small action, right, that will lead to other actions. For most of us, if you're in the real estate business, like most of us or a lot of us are, lead generating or talking with clients, making those phone calls, reaching out to people is something a lot of us avoid. And that little activity is just to make sure, okay, if you're having your calendar that you're going to do something from 9 until 10 or 9 to 11, do we show up for it? That might be the best thing to do, is just to show up. Have your notepad, make your calls, do your thing. So the small activities really add up. And that is, I think, the most important part of this, because sometimes the best thing you can do to get yourself out of a funk is to simply just take some action on the things that you know will make a difference.
Absolutely.
So 5 steps, basically the same things. 5 steps to shift your mindset. So or one, recognize the thought. 2, pause and breathe. 3, ask what is possible. So shifting from why can't I to exploring the opportunities and the solutions. Identify one small action. And that is, I think, the key that we, just referred to on the previous slide. Like, identify that one action that you can take that will make all of the difference. For me, for the working out thing, I have written it down. I know it. I know it. Now I'm doing it on video so that people will probably see this and be like, did you do it? they're in my workout room, which is right behind this wall, right? So I just need to go in there and grab them, right? And they're very, very new. I just need to bring them to the side of my bed this evening, and that will work out, right? Because if I had to stand on them, that one small action make a big difference. And then taking immediate action. So I have to do it tonight, right? I can't do it tomorrow. I can't do. I'm going to just get through the weekend, right? You got to start today. You got to start today because if you keep delaying that, you keep when the worst thing you can do is let yourself down. And when you've already let yourself down many, many, many times, your brain and this, right? One of the biggest challenges we have with this is it already knows that you already don't keep commitments to yourself. So when you don't keep commitments to yourself, like, oh, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to prospect and lead generate for 2 hours. I'm going to do open houses. I'm going to write handwritten cards to my clients, whatever. These are just activities that we can do. We know they would make a difference. And if we did them consistently and right away, they would have an immediate effect.
Yeah.
And we procrastinate. And this already knows that we're going to do that, right? This already knows. And then it knows like, you're going to let yourself down. It's pretty sure you're going to. And you've done it before, so it's comfortable. So
Yep.
why aren't you as successful as you want to be? I'm reading these. I'm like, oh, these kind of hurt a little bit. Like, number one, you're lazy, right? You're lazy. You think, that's probably partially true. I'm lazy. You don't do the activities. That one is a big one for me. So these are just the reasons you're not as successful as you want to be. You don't do the activities. You fear the unknown. I think for a lot of people, they fear the unknown. So you hear that a lot. Like, well, I don't really want to do that much business. I want to have balance. I want to do, it's like the people many times will create fear of something that they don't have and realize, like, I mean, whether you want to make $20,000 a year or 120 or 320, the fear of the unknown, right? You can have it all. You can have a bigger income, more time off, more balance, right? These are all things that, again, we can take action to do the activities that will lead us to any goal. Or we can just fear the unknown and then make roadblocks in our brain, right? Because we're talking about this today. We just create these things and manufacture fears, which are mostly not happening. And
But
then the biggest one
they're
on,
real in your brain. So they look like fear, but it may not be fear. It's probably most of the time it's made up.
yeah, there's a good quote, and it was I used to actually have it in my office. I don't know what I did with it, but it was something about fear. It was like the majority of the things that you fear are things that are actually not happening.
Yeah.
They're not happening, and that they're not going to happen. And the last one on here is you're just too comfortable. And we see this a lot. I see this a lot with my peer group, people in Gary Keller's mastermind group, other agents that I've networked with. You can do well just enough that you're comfortable, and then you just can get stuck, right? You do pretty good. You win a couple of awards in your office. You get a few extra sales. You're doing pretty darn good, and you're just kind of comfortable. And you think, are you really challenging yourself? Are you getting better? Right? Or are you just comfortable? And that's why so many people, right? Like from a working out standpoint, that's why so many people end up hiring a trainer, right? Because they're comfortable. Like they work out, they don't really see much for results, right? They are pretty consistent at doing the activities. And then they find like if you really want to grow, you're going to have someone push you further, right? And make you more uncomfortable, have a little bit more pain, right? And when you go and meet with a trainer where they just push you harder than you would of yourself.
Yeah.
All right. So what is an abundance mindset? So the big thing here is really kind of there's two, main objectives. If you're going to run a business, do you want to have a business by default or do you want to have a business by design? And another thing that I was talking with my networking group, we meet on Thursday mornings, and it's a bunch of entrepreneurs, all different industries, And and we share a lot of the same challenges across all industries, right? So whether it's your mindset, um, growth, revenue, whether it's top line revenue, bottom line revenue, cutting expenses, holding your expenses, all the different things. Are you going to have a plan or a design for that business? Or do you just have a default business and just whatever happens, happens and just feel like you're kind of like a victim to it? There's four main strategies, right? So you're number one, you're going to make the plan. So establishing a clear strategy and a roadmap. In almost every industry, well, in every industry, there are people that are doing extraordinary and there are people that are doing ordinary. The extraordinary are following a plan. They have a plan, they've made it, they've established a really clear strategy and a roadmap. And most of us within our respective industries can just look at other people's roadmap, other people's plan, and copy parts of it. That's a great start, right? If you don't have your own plan, look at other people who are achieving at a little bit higher level and just use parts of their plan, right? Just make sure that it's something that is what you want to achieve. Number two to the right, so using proven models. So I would say the biggest thing you can do is just don't reinvent the wheel, right? So leveraging successful frameworks for efficiency. People have lived before us, right? So if you're going to start a restaurant business, there are pretty successful restaurant businesses out there. Using proven models is pretty easy, to follow those certain models. Same thing in real estate, mortgage, title. The big thing when you're following proven models is they have to have had the results that you're seeking. If someone doesn't have the results you're seeking, do not use their model, right? Because that is that's the opposite of a proven model, right? Someone just has some models written down, but they haven't achieved anything. That's not a proven model. So a proven model does have to have worked in your industry, in your market is even better. So following people's proven models, like we have a class where we go through like all of our models, economic model, lead generation model. Those things are, for most people's industry, if you run a landscape company, there are proven landscape models that work. And so adopting those is pretty simple. I mean, you can go on ChatGPT or Gemini or anything like that, and they will give you some of the framework from a lot of people across many industries. Next, you got boost production. So scaling your operations to increase output. I think the trick with scaling, so that you hear about this all the time, people want to scale my business, scale my business. If you have a gong show of a business currently, scaling it'll just make it a bigger gong, right? So if it does not work without your daily involvement, right? If you can't go on vacation for 30 days and your business still works, you probably shouldn't be thinking, I need to really scale, right? Scaling a business needs to be something that works if you're the leader of this business and it doesn't work without you running into the office every single day, then scaling it is something that, again, scaling operations means that you have something to scale. So I would, for a lot of businesses, the top line revenue is going to be different among different businesses depending on your average ticket price. But boosting production through scaling needs to be something that is actually a model, those proven models and systems that are working. Now scaling it's just necessary, right? Growth becomes easy because the scaling part is like just using those predictable, duplicatable systems and adding more and more people to them. And then last, control your outcomes. So managing those processes, ensuring that the desired results are there, making sure there was one I grabbed actually from my mastermind group where they met at family reunion. They were talking about just service, right? Just how can you create, the Ritz-Carlton, there's many other examples, but how can you create the absolutely highest level of service for your clients so that the process of your business, whatever it is delivered way past just the desired results, right? So how can you take it from here? And then again, as you're scaling, instead of just like meeting their expectation, but just like surprise them at almost every turn, right? Surprising people by the service that they receive. And that, again, like controlling your outcome is really going to be that process is now a living and breathing thing within the organization that people feel like that is my job, is to just exceed people's expectations every single day. And people, again, it's pretty easy to get employees or people within your business to sign up for wowing clients, because I don't think there's really anyone in the service industry, if you're not interested in serving people, you should probably go get like a coin operated car wash or something. Like you should probably get into something else, right? Like if you're not into serving people and providing just unbelievable award level service, you certainly don't want to choose real estate. But most service based businesses really shouldn't be anything you get into either.
Yeah, for sure. Oops.
That locked up the ooh.
There we go. Yep, it locked up. Here we go.
So scarcity versus abundance. Again, negativity versus neutral, negativity versus positivity. When you look at the scarcity mindset, you're commonly talking about excuses, constantly finding the reasons why things can't be done. If you have not read the Six Thinking Hats, for some of you, you're like me. I tend to be a black hat, which constantly is looking for the things that could go wrong. It's just who I am, right? So there's the Six Thinking Hats. If you haven't read that book, before you before you look into this, read that little small book. It will tell you which hat you are, and it's the way in which you look at business, right? So there are six different thinking hats, and so excuses is something, again, that can be, it could be something that's ingrained into your personality and sort of how you think of things. So the victim mentality. So believing external circumstances control your destiny. Again, are things happening to you? Are they happening for you? The victim mentality believes that, again, like things are just happening to you, right? Or just, oh, woe is me. Not solution oriented. So focusing on your problems rather than seeking solutions. Long time ago, we used to have that, on our team, we would have people, you'd constantly be solving problems. And I do think that we have gotten way better as a team where people understand, like, look for the solution, bring two or three solutions. If you're confused and you want to talk to someone else on the team, like, I've got these three, so this is the problem I have. These are the three solutions. I'm wondering, do you have any experience with this particular problem? Like, which solution do you think looks best? If you get other people's input, that's awesome. But being solution oriented and thinking, like, obviously anyone can bring problems, right? Voicemail, just your voicemail on your phone can bring you a problem, right? So that doesn't take any effort whatsoever. Coming up with the solution is where all of us provide value. The career victim, that's a good one. So feeling trapped and powerless by your professional life. There are people, that I think feel like that. They can feel like whatever they have chosen for their respective career is their actual issue. Like that, I've chosen a business, and in our business, we get that sometimes. People are like, well, I don't want to have to work nights and weekends. Like, you can work days, right? There's plenty of people that would like to work with people that work during the day, right? So most of the reason I see a lot of agents work all nights and weekends is because they don't work during the day. Like, so if you leave it to default, if you don't do anything much during the day, well, then it just like what's left is nights and weekends. So the feeling like you're a career victim is really feeling trapped or powerless to, like, whatever your respective job is. Not being self-aware. I mean, this is another one. I think, one of the keys, and, for me anyways, when I have had the best coaching experiences, all of the coaches have focused, again, they focus the entire coaching on you. Like, are you aware of how you occur? Are you aware of what you brought to this issue? Right? Because there again, if you own a business, run a business, and you're not self-aware, not understanding, where you're at or kind of how you are motivated, how you react, not understanding your thinking hat. Like again, I tend to, that black hat thing creeps up all the time. And if I'm not careful, I can allow that to be an overpowering thing as a leader, right? Like just the things that could possibly go wrong, which obviously there's lots of stuff that could go wrong. We could get hit by lightning today. Probably not in Minnesota, but we could. And last, we got complain, blame, and justify. So engaging in the negative patterns to avoid responsibility. So anything you can do to just sort of shirk off the responsibility, own it. If you do something wrong, if you make a mistake, own it immediately. There's nothing worse. We had something come up with a client the other day. A date got mixed up on something. And so I called the client immediately. As soon as I found out, owned it, owned the mistake, and then fixed it. And, again, it's don't try to blame anything else. It doesn't do you any good, right? Just own it and take responsibility for it. Switching over to the abundance or the positive mindset. So the opposite of excuses is accountability. Accountability is really taking ownership of your actions and your results, right? So if you're not hitting the results that you want different results. Accountability is the key, right? So accountability, if nothing else, that is the one thing I think if you will just be accountable to what it is that is your goal. We used to help, set agents' goals on our team. And what we found is it needs to be something that's important to them. It needs to be important to their family, to their life. And, they don't want to be accountable to someone else. They don't want to be accountable to someone else's goals. They really want to be accountable to their goals. And if they can articulate, why is it really something that is important to me? Or is it really something that's important? The lack of accountability typically comes from a fact that like the goal really isn't the goal. It's just a wish. It's just a wish. And it's kind of like being neat. But it's not really something that I'm committed to. Accountability changes that goal and says, this is a commitment. So I want to be accountable. I want to commit to a goal. It's no longer just like a wish. It's something I'm committed to for a certain purpose. The opposite of a victim mentality, obviously, is an empowered mindset. Obviously everything we're talking about, but believing you have the power to create your future, believing you have the power to just shift your mindset. I feel better already. Like you guys don't even know, no one's inside. You're not inside someone else's head. So that's the other part that I would say is like, we all have our highlight reels running on, social media. So, the majority of the videos that we produce are not about like me having my shit sandwich for lunch. That's not the video we put together. But we all have those, right? We all have those. And if everyone is honest, it's like, shifting into that empowered mindset is really just a matter of taking those activities and doing them one at a time, again, until we find like, oh my gosh, I did that for an hour and I did feel a lot better. I got rid of that, little crappy mindset where I felt like I didn't create my future or have a hand in that or power to change. Being solution oriented. So actively seeking innovative ways to overcome challenges. Just don't be too innovative. I think solutions are very seldom difficult. So just like I just want to. The only thing I would caution against is the innovative part, right? You don't need really innovative solutions. You need like the solution is usually pretty simple. It's right in front of you. You're avoiding the simplicity. And I've told many people that story. For people who are really, really smart, entrepreneurship sometimes can be difficult. And I think that's why you see a lot of, high school dropouts, college dropouts. You see people become entrepreneurs. It's not that you don't need to be smart. It's that you can't be too creative to try and overcomplicate the simplicity of success, because the rhythm and the simplicity is, again, it's just a choice to take action and do the things that are important. Most of us already know the things that are important, either in your respective career, your health, your wealth, your spiritual life, right? Your personal life, your family, your spouse, significant other. those things are like, two or three things you could do today that would make your personal life better, right? If you're married, or if you have kids, if you had a relationship with your parent, there's a couple things you could do that would make that relationship better. And there's a few things you could do to really train wreck that relationship today, right? And knowing that you have a choice between, like, these are a couple of good thoughts. Like, I could do these couple of things and they would definitely move the needle in the right direction. And then I could do these other things and that would just really take it in the wrong direction. That's just a choice. And that's how simple it is. We make it more complicated sometimes to make ourselves feel better, right? So to be solution oriented, you just want to make sure you're not going to make it difficult, or that it is that you come up with solutions that are complicated. Sorry for the long explanation on that one. So the career owner, right? So sorry, proactively shaping your professional path and opportunities. So, again, you own your career as an entrepreneur, you own your path. But what is the path? Right? Are you actively or proactively figuring out what that path is? Are you proactively looking at saying, where do I want to be in 3 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Am I taking the necessary steps? Even if you have let yourself down, even if you haven't been accountable, right? Even if you have made that choice that I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to eat salad, I'm going to run on the treadmill, whatever these things are, I'm going to lead generate in real estate, I'm going to book appointments. If you've let yourself down 7 times, 8 times, 11 times, 49 times, you can decide today that it can be different. And so that career owner is like, where am I at today? There's no, problem with the things that I have or haven't accomplished in the past, but today is a new day, and setting that and saying, you know what? I just want it to be different. So the trajectory can change the moment your mind does. And that, again, back to self-aware, or not being self-aware versus self-aware, understanding your strengths, your weaknesses. I do think, if you haven't taken the DISC assessment, we have everyone on our team take it. We review them, I would say, somewhat often. I think it's really appropriate for everyone to understand from an awareness standpoint. The DISC assessment, people, I think sometimes they assessments get a bad rap because they get used as tools to tell people, like, well, it's like a license to, like, bad behavior, or I'm just a this and so I act this way, or I'm just a that and so I act that way. This is more for you to say, okay, these are my strengths, and 90% of your weaknesses are really your strengths overdone, right? So it's, the people think like they'll have a high, let's say a high C and a really low D, and they think, well, that the low D on the DISC assessment is their weakness. Like, no, overthinking and being too detailed, right? So the C is a very detailed, off the charts, analytical, thorough, comprehensive person. That being overdone, those strengths being overdone, become all of our weaknesses. We use our strengths almost to an advantage, but almost to a disadvantage when they're used too much. So being self-aware and knowing, again, these are where you grow, is usually figuring out the gaps that you have. And then last, taking action and owning it. So how do you move forward? So if you want to be proactive with your behavior, that's going to make positive changes and progress in your life. So are you taking action on the things, right? So have you defined the one or two steps that you need in each category of your life, things that are important? Do you know the next step? Do you know the things that is, like, the most important? For me, it's really just living by my schedule. I have pre-committed my schedule. It's filled out. The times where I am the most on my game, I live by my schedule. It was predetermined to be successful. I put it in writing. I have it there. When I default from it and I allow things to distract and fall in there, and the got a minute things, the things that distract you are the things that pull you off of your goals. So then you're not taking action on the most important thing. You might be working on, like, the 29th important thing. The victim cycle. Ooh, I love this one. So people This is like all of us. My kids hate this one. They hate when I use the word victim. They hate it so much. And most of the time, they don't know this that much. But I'm usually, whenever I talk really loud to them, I'm usually just talking to myself. And so it's usually, as a parent, the things that you want to work most on with your children or those around you, those you love, are the things that you most want to work on with yourself, right? And so the victim mentality, I remember telling my kids when they were in sports or, growing up, it would be, just again, like, don't allow that victim mentality to overtake your brain, right? Where you're blaming others, just that was a bad pitch, or, you hear it all the time with that was a bad ref. Those were horrible calls. We shouldn't have got a penalty. Why did they throw the flag, right? So all of these things, and it's like, the best advice I can give you is if you have small children, they're going to play sports in any shape or any way, you let those things, those disappointments, those things that happen in life, let those really shape and help your son or daughter, help them understand that they're not a victim. Like they're not going to like their boss one day either. They may think a coworker had an advantage. And so if you can think of this victim cycle, it starts with complaining about your circumstances, right? So you're just complaining about your circumstances, which can seem normal. The problem is complaining, and I have another sign I have in my office: complaining equals garbage magnet, right? And we learned that in bold years and years ago. If you're complaining, you're going to attract garbage. That's just because that's who listens to complaining, is people who like garbage. And so the people who will listen to you, the people who talk back, those are the ones you really want to be worried about. If you complain, that's one thing. But then you need to find a Luetta. You find someone in your life that will let you complain and then pivot you and tell you to find something good, right? Because again, if you allow that to get into your life, you'll just be that garbage magnet.
Yeah.
Complaining about your circumstances. Next phase, blaming others, right? So that goes easily from complaining to now I'm just blaming. So, I mean, obviously, all of these things going wrong in my day and my situation are out of my control, and they must be other people causing these problems, right? It's your parents, you had a bad upbringing. I mean, you're 30, right? You had a bad upbringing. Okay, you're out of it now. Now it's your fault, right? Like, we can't be blaming our past forever, right? At some point, we have to say, okay, we're going to spin out of it. Someone else had a horseshit childhood. They had a bad upbringing. They had a bad experience, and they were able to persevere or figure out how to get above that. And that's where, again, blaming others, it can be a really, really big trap. And so just own where you're at and say, you know what? What can I do to just move from here? And then the justifying your inaction. This is where, as an entrepreneur, as a realtor, dealing with a lot of salespeople myself, like, inactivity and justifying inactivity is where you create the reasons why you didn't take the steps to improve your situation. Like, you literally knew what you could do to improve your situation. I know what I can do to be healthier. I just have to eat more salads, I guess, and vegetables. And I have to drink some more water, and I have to work out. And that is not a complicated strategy, right? So it's really like, do I want to change that situation? Do I want to improve it? Am I going to take the necessary steps? Am I going to create reasons, right, why I can't take those steps?
Yeah.
That's, without awareness and accountability, the knowledge alone won't save you.
For sure. And we see this victim cycle often, especially in the real estate world. And we hear it in our office every day, not just the Jason Gorman real estate team, but just working with agents in general who will complain about the circumstances, blame others, whether it's the clients or the leads or whatever. And then because of all of that, they just decide not to move forward and take action. And it's just this vicious cycle. And then they don't see success because they
The
don't know how to break out of it.
Exactly, and you're 100% right. Like that, I think we could even add to the center of this diagram, just write the words "you." Like that is just, you are right in the middle, right? You are right in the middle, justifying inaction, blaming others, complaining about your circumstances. The only person you control is you. The only person I control is me. And so it's like, you can't get out of the victim until you acknowledge like you are the actual problem.
Right. And it doesn't make you a bad person when you get into this victim cycle.
No,
So
no,
if
it's normal.
everybody does it, Jason does it, I've done it. It's just a matter of recognizing it and getting out of it.
Yeah. I had a coach years ago, and I've used this with a lot of the people that I coach personally. And that is these little, a lot of women will have the little compact mirrors. You get a little mirror for your purse or whatever. And so he told me, this is my coach, this was 30 years ago, my first coach. He told me that I needed to go to the store and buy one. He didn't tell me why or anything. And so I went and got the mirror. And, this was back when we had to tape record, 30 something years ago. We didn't have all these fancy iPhones and things. So I had to tape record phone calls. And so he had received my tape recorded phone calls from calling leads or, clients, whatever, prospecting and following up with leads. And he, in listening to those, he had determined that I was being a victim. Like, jeepers, like this guy's good. Like, how do you get that out of just listening to how I was talking to like people? Um, and so, and it was more what I would say when I would hang up the phone, because when you're recording yourself, you'd hang up the phone, talk to the client, then like, oh, that person or this or this. And so he got that for me so that while I was prospecting, he wanted me to set that mirror in front of me so that that I would be able to see the person that I control, and that is the only person he wants me working on, because you are the actual problem. Like nothing, these people, right? When I would hang up the phone and be like, oh, that was, that person was mean, or why did they hang up on me, or what a jerk, or they're never going to sell their house. Like all the things, right? All the things. Like think of the last time you hung up the phone from someone who, maybe didn't want to talk to you, or maybe you called them and they moved last week, right? And you think, oh, that made me mad. Like, and so all the things, the colorful details that you would record if you did record yourself. Um, this coach was perfect. He was like, you need to carry that mirror. He said, I'd probably put it in my pocket if I were you. And so it was like, it helped me realize like, oh, okay. Well, that's definitely, you could at least see the person that was causing the problem. Right. And that's the only person that you control. So if you want to get better, if you want to get out of the victim cycle, you're going to need to understand that you're the one that controls you. So you are the person that has been, again, going through all of your life. Any of the little, if you have that, black cloud following you, right? What you may wake up and find someday is like that we are the cloud. Right? We are the cloud because of how we're thinking. And our mindset is determining that cloud activity all around us.
Yeah.
What top producers have. And again, this is not to say like when you get to be a top producer I've literally started this entire thing off today saying, man, I had a crappy day today. It's like, you just like have them, like welcome to life. Like sometimes sometimes you're the bug and sometimes you're the windshield, right? Like this is just part of life. So I go into this like to what top producers have. Now, the more successful you're going to become, the easier you spin out of the rut, right? Because the rut doesn't get as deep. So we all have the rut. We're all going to have challenges. We're all going to have crabby days. I would say you don't have as many crabby days. You just have a crabby couple hours or a crabby minute, right?
I
You
think
don't
that's
have
the
to
absolute
have,
key is
yeah.
you can be crabby. It's how long you stay in it.
How long
That
do you stay?
shows, yeah, that shows growth. If you can get out of it, if it normally would take you all day or a weekend, or you have to go lay in the fetal position in bed for all day, and then you move that to only half a day, and then you move it to just a couple hours, it's that's growth.
You're making progress.
You're making progress.
Yeah. So what top producers have, so not to overemphasize what top producers have, because we all have all of these, but managing their thoughts to stay focused. Positive self-talk. So telling yourself I can constantly. And affirmations, I am a firm believer in affirmations, but I think if you're just saying affirmations as words, if you're just trying to memorize words, that's really not an affirmation. It's like, do you really believe it?
Yeah.
right? Telling yourself like I can is fine. Like those are just two words. I can do this. If you're like, I can, I think, I think, like if the I think is quiet, you think right in here, you think, I think I can, I hope, I can, I hope. Like if you add on to like, I can, other words, that is your inside voice, which again, it's not bad that you have it. You just, the positive self talk is just that. It's just talk, right?
Yeah.
And what do we truly believe? And that is, I would say, making those commitments to yourself. So deciding, okay, I'm going to commit to this. It's no longer a goal. It's no longer like this would be really neat. Because the third and final step is self trust. You rely on yourself, you rely on your judgment and the actions. And so when you distrust yourself, right? When you've already let yourself down. So if you've committed to lead generation in the past, if you've committed to being healthy in the past, if you've committed to getting back to church, going to mass, like if you've committed to something and then not followed through, you determined it was important, you said it was important, you thought it was important, and then you didn't do the activities. That's where you don't even trust yourself. And those are the things that you really have to think about because when we commit to things, they're going to happen, right? And we use this example when we're teaching even about lead gen. It's, if you told your spouse or significant other, like, or your kid, even better, right? Pick up your kid from school and they say, well, they're done at 2. And you think, well, I'll try to be there at 2. I'll try to be there too. Like, what happens if you don't? Like I guess they're not getting picked up. So like you either are committed to it or you're not. So you're either going to do it or you're not. And that's where when you make a commitment to yourself and then you don't do it, you've proven that they were just kind of wishes and not commitments at all. A commitment, you're going to actually be there. So I will be there at 2 o'clock and then you'll be there at 2 o'clock because that's a commitment. And that's where just be careful that you don't add too many things to the list of things that would be neat, but you're not even remotely committed to it.
Yeah. That's the whole self-trust is just if you're when you're saying when you're telling yourself I can consistently and then you start to show up for yourself, you're taking that action, then that when what top producers have figured out is that that's kind of where when they can trust themselves, now they're
Right.
seeing the success
You're
because they are
following
showing
through.
up. They're following through. This is what you were talking about before, how intelligence can be the enemy.
Well, I guess, yeah, this is the benefit, right? I graduated 182nd out of 184 kids in my class. So it was easy for me, right, not to overthink things, right? Overthinking, I wasn't like capable of that. Really smart people have a tough time, I think, as an entrepreneur because they tend to have the capacity to make things super complicated, right? They can take easy things and make them complicated. And the goal here is to take something complicated, like, stratospheric business success, which again seems really, really complicated. Like, well, how can we break it down to something that is really, really simple? So intelligence is the enemy is really like, success in real estate is not determined by intelligence. So sometimes your intelligence can just be an obstacle. And smart people, really smart people, we've seen some really, really smart people get into real estate and they just overthink it, right? They come up with a 27-page business plan that they literally don't even take any time to implement even page 1. Right. So they've got all the pages and everything is detailed and everything is great. But trying to reinvent the wheel, right? They have 23 lead sources, right? So they have 23 levers in their business that are going to generate leads. You think, well, shoot, the best real estate businesses in the country have 3 to 5. Right. There's not one top producing company that has 23 sources of business. I mean, they may have 23, but they have 3 to 5 that are 95% of their business,
Yeah.
right? So they have some focus, right? They're focused in a few key areas or a few key things. So, don't reinvent the wheel. And then The other thing, and from an intelligence standpoint, if you're really intelligent, you'll resist proven systems, right? You'll try to invent new system. It takes longer for you to really invent and work on this, innovative. And I love the word innovation, and you just have to be careful that um, you don't use innovation as an excuse to come up with something so cutting edge that it actually never happens. I think people, um, again, buying and selling real estate's been done like for a long, long time. And overcomplicating it, the service side of it is what the client experiences, right? The houses are actually relatively simple, right? The houses really are not complicated at all. There's some nuances, there's some complexity, but the real complicated part in real estate is just the human interaction or the people, right? Because people can be messy, right? People can be messy. They have expectations. We don't always understand what those are. And so the sooner we can understand their expectations, the sooner we can really understand what we deliver and how we deliver it and articulate that and then ensure that it's delivered beyond what we promised, right? If your service is delivered beyond what you promised, the proven systems are pretty easy to make sure that you keep replicating because they deliver beyond the client's experience or what they expect.
Yeah.
Back to, complaining, blaming, and justifying. So highly intelligent people often are going to complain, blame, or justify. Top producers are not necessarily smarter. They simply control their mindset. So just control your mindset more. So stop thinking and start doing, right? So are we going to be a student of the game? Are we going to class every week? Or we go to every seminar? We go to every class? We sign up for every idea? Or are we going to play the game, right? We're going to take action and we're going to get results. So you do have to decide, right? Are you going to be a student or are you going to be a player? Mindset is a reaction to action. This is, we had set this up years ago, and it's, basically you set a goal, right? So defining what you want to achieve, identify the activities that you need to take in order to accomplish that goal, execute it consistently. So, I think that I use, so this daily activity record, I'm, prehistoric. So I still use a paper version. We have, an online version for people under the age of 50. But I love my little paper version, but that daily activity record and daily schedule. So making sure like I time block my 2 to 3 hours per day of calling, following up with leads, making sure that I'm doing the things that are most important in my day for a few hours, and that consistency. So making sure like, am I actually tracking my activities? How many appointments did you book? How many people did you talk to? Like just tracking your actual activities. Then your mindset responds. And this is where, again, based on your actions, and we started with this and now we'll be getting close to ending with this, your mindset can play tricks on you because you can be in a funk, right? You can be in a funk. I was actually in one right before we started this darn thing. And that your circumstances, right? Your circumstances can create that. So when you do the activities, though, you're going to create confidence, you're going to create momentum and clarity. And when you avoid activities, you create doubt, anxiety, a lack of control. When you don't do the things you're supposed to do, you also let yourself down, and you've proven you've affirmed to yourself, I don't do what I say I'm going to do. And so then it's like, well, then it's easy to let yourself down again tomorrow. Like you just let yourself down today. Right. And so like getting out of that trap, setting a goal. And so there's no time like the present. Set a goal for today. I'm going to do this. I'm going to live by my schedule. I'm going to do this. I'm going to drink 8 glasses of water, right? There's very, very few things that you need to do in any category of your life that would really move the needle. And if you think about those 2 or 3 things that you could do, that's really the defining factor, right? It's like you can execute consistently when you know the activities. And then again, if you do them, you're going to build that confidence. If you don't, you create doubt and anxiety in your own brain. So the characteristics of a top producer, we came up with 7, but there's probably more. But the most important 7 are the ones that we think are the most important are: number 1, be coachable. Um, what we find obviously is, coachable people are willing to say, how do I get better? Right? If you haven't recorded your phone calls, conversations with clients, if you haven't had someone just listen in, go on appointments with you, and just see like where are the gaps, right, in your business? Where are the gaps with you? Um, Being coachable, there are people that are already achieving at a higher level. No matter who you are, there's always someone that's achieving at a higher level. And so, can you be coachable and try to find those people that could help you, right? Create that shortcut. Number two, are you able to learn from others? Um, Again, there's people that have lived before all of us in every aspect of life, again, health, wealth, fitness, family, faith. The opportunities to learn from others that have lived before you is always there. Number three, self aware. We talked about that before, but being self aware is just going to allow you to know, again, the person that you control, the only person you control, um, is really, that's obviously if you spend the majority of your time working on yourself, you're going to be a hell of a lot better. Other people don't want you to work on them. It turns out that that's actually true. Um, find that out the
That's for
hard way
sure.
sometimes. I do have a lot of advice sometimes for other people, and I find they actually don't want it at all. So it's good to be self aware, and it's good to know that like you can make your own changes. Number four, be humble. No one likes someone that's arrogant. No one likes someone that is overly confident. So be humble and understand that obviously all of us have something to learn. All of us can learn something from someone else, no matter who they are. And being humble is really just understanding that all of us, we're all created equal that way. Number five, not reinventing the wheel. I think, again, if you're in any business, particularly real estate, but really this goes for any business, there is someone already crushing it in your market, in your industry. So your industry is already being crushed. Every industry in all markets has someone who is really doing well. And that is not super hard to emulate, right? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's usually just some pretty simple things being done consistently that makes all the difference in the world. Um, Being willing. So number six, being willing to do the uncomfortable activities. We talked about that at length, and it's true. The activities will lead to the results. If you do the work, the work works. And walking on the treadmill for 30 minutes is like that's it's not hard, right? All of us can do it. Most of us can do it. And it make a big difference. And 30 minutes a day, 2.5 hours a week, like the compounding effect, right? The compounding effect of doing this over and over and over again is really what's going to make the biggest difference. Um, I know that it's more than 2.5 hours if you did Saturday and Sunday. I'm just saying if I commit to do it, I'm gonna do 5 days, maybe take Saturday and Sunday off. So then it's 2.5 hours. Just want to qualify that. Willing to do what the uncomfortable activities. Yeah, we just talked about that one. And then the last one, so reliant on systems. And that is, I mean, the not reinventing the wheel or relying on the systems. Like for me, using this little book and just writing down, like I have 20 lines every single day. I very seldom ever get to 20 unique contacts a day. Some days might be 7, 8, 9, 11. Some I might miss a day, right? But when you're reliant on the system, so for me, the system is I date the top right corner. I write down anyone I talk to that day and just make sure. So for me, it's just making sure that that is a really simple system of accountability for me that's visual that I can see. I can look back and see, gosh, I had 5 days last week where I was accountable. I had 3 days where I was accountable, right? Because if I didn't do the activities, I wasn't accountable to the things that move the needle. And if you're not moving the needle, if you're not doing making yourself accountable to those activities, then that is the gap, right? That is literally the entire problem.
If you're not reliant on the systems that you have in place, the good systems you have in place, then it is literally the tail wagging the dog.
Mhm.
So you have to rely on those systems that are working and do everything to a T. And when you do that, you'll see success.
Well, or just like you're relying on willpower, and it's like willpower can work sometimes, but it's not going to work all the time. Willpower would not work today, right? Willpower would not have worked for me today, right? I would just have avoided doing what I was supposed to do because I was just having a bad day, dealing with a couple of crabby things. It just things that, again, like, are normal, right? We're all going to have these little different things that we deal with in our life. And that's part of life, right? That's part of life. And it's not always going to be bunnies and puppies. It just isn't. And we all know that. We all have those challenging circumstances or challenging days. But doing the activities, living by your calendar, being consistent, these are the ways that we can get ourselves out of the rut faster.
Yeah. Last slide.
This is so this actually is something we use for our agents. You can use this, I mean, for other people, other industries. I know a number of people from my networking group, are in multiple different types of industries, landscaping, insurance. Um, this can be used, right? You're going to have to come up with your activities. So it starts with mindset. This entire presentation or class, we were talking about mindset, right? So what are some things that you can do to keep yourself in a good mindset? Affirmations, having some affirmations, right? So I have mine laminated. They're in my office. And having affirmations for me, I start every single morning with reading the Bible. I use an app called Hallow, which I absolutely love, and praying the rosary. So whatever you do, mindset, there's things that you can do, like listening to podcasts, uplifting music, reading books, exercise. That's what I need to add. We talk about that though. We're going to get the shoes, we're going to put them next to the bed, we're going to make that commitment. And meditation. So those are things that are they're tools that a lot of people use. There are tons of apps for each one of these. There's apps that you can use that are simple on your phone. Most of you have your phone in your hand from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. So using that to have apps to actually hold you accountable to the things that are most important. Mindset obviously is a big one. Skill set. So skill set is working on being better, right? So if you run a landscape company, you're an electrical contractor and you have 20 employees, what is the skill set that you need to work on? Is there coaching that you could get? Is there a mastermind group of other business owners that own, top level landscape companies in the country? That type of commitment to your skill set is what's going to move the needle. I'm in a couple of mastermind groups and networking groups, and those have been really good. Coaching, taking classes, script role playing. We put on here KW Bold. So that's a class that a lot of our agents have taken. I personally have taken. Jeff Glover is another one that you're going to his class, I think, in June?
Yeah.
So there are many other classes, but skill set is really just taking the time to say, okay, these are the things I'm going to do to get better this year. It could be as simple as 3 or 4 books that you're going to read regarding a certain part of your life that you want to work on. If you're an entrepreneur, there are awesome books on being an entrepreneur. So working on your skill set. And then the activities. So the activities, and that's why that box is around it, right? So the skill set and the activities need to be put into your day. Right. So you have to have a time, 2 to 3 hours a day, where you actually are going to work on these things. You're going to spend time practicing, right? If you were to, follow Tiger Woods or any of these, awesome athletes, in their day is spent practicing and working on their skill is probably the majority of their day. Right. And then competing is a small portion of their day, right? Or week or even a month. And so the activities that you need to work on, and I would say just do not commit to more than 3, absolutely no more than 5 activities, right? It's impossible for you to get good at 23 activities. We alluded to that before. We have a whole bunch of different possible activities. And these are real estate activities. If you run a landscape company, there are certain things you can do. There are trade shows. There's probably flyers, mailings. There's probably email, social media, classes you could teach on how to, do landscaping. There's lots of things that any industry can come up with their own activities. but you're going to need to spend some time doing those activities and getting better at them. And if you're not doing that, if that isn't your 20%, right? So if you take your week and you say 2 to 3 hours per day, depending on how many hours per week you work, 2 to 3 hours per day is going to be your 20%, where you have to focus on the activities that move the needle. If you're not doing that, then you're probably working on the 80, right? So you're working on the 80% that won't deliver any results. And you'll just accidentally have success sometimes once in a while. And you'll be crabby and then you'll be in that bad mindset. And it's that these are the activities that we're saying, like you have to define what they're going to be for you. We're not here to tell you. And in real estate, you should pick, calling your sphere should be one. The only people that wouldn't check that box, that's why that one is pre-checked. Would be if you don't have one. And then if you don't have one, well, then maybe you just moved here from out of state last week. You still have a sphere. It just might be small, right? And half of them may live in a different state. But it's still going to be important, right? And the number one priority would be, because all of these other activities in most industries, there's really two groups of people you can get business from. When you're looking at lead generating, you only have two groups, and that is the people you know, and then the people you don't know. The people you don't know is a really big group, right? But the whole reason you're going to try and get these people, the people you don't know, is so that eventually they become the people you do know. But if we actively ignore the people that we do know, what is the point of getting new people?
Right.
So we have to make sure that the people we do know are constantly and consistently communicated with, because there's no need to generate new business if we just ignore all of the people we already know.
And that's following a system.
Following
So
a
we
system.
have a system in place that allows you to make contact with your sphere and stay in front of them at all times.
Yeah,
We
stay
also
in front of
have a
your
system
database.
in
I mean, that
place for each of the checklists here, for each category, FISBOs, expireds, door knocking. It's a system. So that's where that previous slide where it's like they're reliant, top producers are reliant on the systems. And if they're following them, they will see success.
right. And that's why you can't commit to 23, right? Because you
No.
can't have 23 systems going at any given time. Each person on our team, again, three, maybe four, right? No more than five. But really, I mean, I built my entire career with three. And I think for most people, if you get really good at a few things, you're not going to need 20 things. Most people can accomplish their financial goals with, say, three lead generation activities, or three main things that would generate business. And then you'll have other things that will fill in the gaps. But your priorities and what you want to focus on is the things that you can just keep doing better and better and better.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. All right. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. Otherwise, we can also send everybody, or we will send everybody the business plan so you can utilize this for yourself as well.
Sounds good. If you guys have questions, you can always send us a message.